Since founding Archer Aviation in 2018, Adam Goldstein has been constructing a very real business based on a very vivid vision.
Imagine you have a flight. It's in 30 minutes, and you're just leaving your house. You can now hop into a vehicle that can fly you to the airport in 5 minutes. We're building the future of aerospace, the future of aerial ride-sharing. That's what electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft can do.
Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing, eVTOLs for short. These are aircraft designed to carry passengers short distances at high speeds, running on batteries that recharge within minutes. It sounds like science fiction.
We're talking about an air taxi or a flying taxi or aerial ride sharing, which is hard to fathom for a lot of people anywhere in the world.
Electric air taxis were really introduced to the world by being called flying cars. They're very similar to cars, like a car with a wing. But the concept of calling these products flying cars really creates this sense that these products are many, many years off. When the reality is, the products are very close to coming to market.
How close?
You will see these products come to market by the year 2025.
2025 is when the Federal Aviation Administration has laid out a plan for eVTOLs to begin limited commercial operations. Getting to market will take vision, technical acumen, not least, shrewd allocation of resources. For this, Goldstein relies on CFO Mark Mesler.
Our timeline to complete the 2024 annual operating plan. We complement each other. I'm used to supporting like the visionary, passionate founder who's out there selling the dream. And
that's a classic Silicon Valley story.
That's right. That's right. And I'm a rational, left-brained CFO who I can tell the story, but I have to tell it in a way that investors will understand, and it's very pragmatic and it's very data-based, I would say.
Mark has been really phenomenal in helping us manage our process and really managing it with speed.
George is turning.
Mark and I partner really to try to keep the company moving on this path, to really make sure we hit our timelines, stay on budget, and ultimately have enough capital to get to the finish line.
The launch of eVTOLs in 2025 would also be the starting line for an urban air mobility industry that many believe has the potential to be transformative.
The opportunity here is to really take the pain points and hassle out of travel. There's excitement, cautious optimism, let's say. There's excitement that you're going to create some new forms of travel that should enhance the overall travel landscape. We're closer to this being realized than we've ever been.
Some of the early cities like Los Angeles, really, and New York and others started paying attention about, I would say, 2018. Really saw interest in the industry then of what might happen with this technology coming. As the industry has advanced, there's more viable entrants to the market. Now we're seeing other cities really try and figure out where this technology fits in their urban landscapes.
Adam Goldstein, Mark Mesler, and the team at Archer are on a path that's never been trodden. They believe it's a path to success.
The product that Archer is building has the potential to change the world, and I feel incredibly lucky for the opportunity to build what we're building.
So we view finance, and I view finance as a key business partner to all the operating functions within the company. We want to be a part of the decision support mechanisms that help them make decisions daily. We also want to be able to put process in place to facilitate those decisions such that it's non-random outcomes. I'm a big proponent of process. I'm a big proponent of creating predictability in the business. There's things you can control and there's things you can't control. And I can control my R&D spend. I can control the processes through which we're putting up our manufacturing plant. There's other things I can't control, so I have to be thinking about what's around the corner. What is that potential bump in the road that I'm gonna have to deal with?
In October 2023, Archer's Midnight aircraft made its first flight at the company's testing facility in California, one more milestone on the journey to FAA certification. Archer is one of several eVTOL companies aiming to come to market in 2025. It's chosen a very particular route to get there.
We are not trying to build the highest flying, farthest flying, fastest flying vehicle. We will build the internal powertrain, which for electric aviation hasn't existed before on certified products. But Archer picked a specific business model and then picked an approach that could be the fastest, most efficient path to market. So for example, we'll work with a company like Honeywell or Safran or Garmin that have parts that are already certified on planes today. Going through a certification process with a regulator, when you start with parts or similar parts that are used on existing planes, all of a sudden there's a lot of built-in knowledge and trust with those parts. And so Mark and I will work together to take the supply base, combine that together with some of the internal core IP that we build to make sure we can build this product.
Partnerships are foundational to Archer's commercialization strategy.
On the operating side, we partner with United Airlines. United has helped us not only in just design of the aircraft, but also ways to really set up the operations of the aircraft.
Archer and United plan to launch the company's first commercial air taxi route between Newark Airport and Lower Manhattan.
United is an investor, but they're a very good operating partner. They're also a customer. They gave us an up to $1 billion contract for 200 aircraft with an option for another 100.
On the OEM side, we partnered with Stellantis, one of the world's best and largest auto manufacturers.
Stellantis also very strong investor, and we think about unlocking scale in this business. Stellantis is helping us think about that as well.
For Archer, the year 2024 will be about scaling up and accelerating execution in every area.
We're going through the certification process. We're building out our factory, the manufacturing vector. We're working on commercial opportunities, and we're also continuing to advance the tech. Really, manufacturing is where a lot of our capital is going as well.
So in Covington, Georgia, we are building one of the largest aerospace manufacturing facilities really in the world. The first phase of this project can build up to 650 planes per year, and within the second phase, around 2,000 planes per year. We need an area that's very favorable towards new technologies. And Georgia really put together a very compelling pitch to entice Archer to come.
It's in a great location outside of Atlanta, so we have access to a really good labor pool there. We have access to universities there.
The goal is to get the Georgia factory online by middle of next year.
Increased production capacity will help Archer develop its relationship with another customer/partner, the US Air Force.
The military has taken a really unique approach to electric air taxis. So the way that the Department of Defense has really partnered with the industry has been to find what they call non-kinetic solutions to use these vehicles for good. So you can think about things like rescue vehicles. And so we start to find different use cases like that in the military that can help us generate revenue and really help the industry get going.
It's a channel for us to develop the tech. It's a channel for us to get incremental funding for those programs. And I think it's a call option in that if you get to the end of the program and that becomes a generational type program for the DoD, it's a call option on a large potential order and program for the company.
If it comes on offer, you take it.
Yep.
Archer's laid plenty of groundwork for future revenue, but for now, Mark Mesler's most pressing challenge as CFO is conserving capital.
You have to have the short-term discipline to sort of circle the wagons around cash. I mean, cash is oxygen. I know where every ounce of cash is going, and but we also have to be nimble around that as well because things change by the day.
Archer went public in 2021 in a reverse merger with a SPAC, Ken Moelis's Atlas Crest Investments. Through August 2023, the company raised over $1 billion from investors including Stellantis, Boeing, United Airlines, and Cathie Wood's ARC Investment Management.
Does that ARC investment open doors for you to bring in different kinds of institutional money going forward?
It does. I mean, I think there's a lot of credibility that comes in with an investor like ARC. As I think about, my top targeted list of investors over the next 2 to 3 years, an investment like that gives us some credibility and gives us a little bit of, staying power as I go in and talk to other investors.
With the SPAC pipe now closed, Archer's facing a new phase of raising capital.
I know the folks who aren't willing to invest right now may have large pockets of investment in the future. So I want to be in front of them. I'm wanting to show them progress. I want to create credibility with them that we are marching towards our goals of commercialization. They may not be a buyer at this point, But I do want to spend a lot of time in front of that other set that is a buyer at this point. They're interested, they want to be an early adopter of the stock, they're interested in the story.
Archer's stock performance this year suggests there's strong interest in the story, especially if it plays out as planned, with FAA certification and commercialization by 2025.
What happens if the FAA delays and you are not certified in 2025?
So I would start thinking about cash preservation at that point. We've got the capital to weather a delay, but it just depends on how long that delay is.
Of course, there's always a potential for it to take longer than expected, but the good news is there are other applications like the military that can provide diverse revenue streams. I'm confident that the FAA will move along expeditious process with Archer and with the industry to allow us to get to market on a time frame that makes sense.
Mark Mesler joined Archer Aviation as CFO in early 2022, bringing more than 25 years of experience in the hardware, sustainability, and aerospace sectors. That included more than a decade at Silicon Valley technology company Bloom Energy.
I started at Bloom. It was a pre-revenue company. We scaled them to an IPO in July of 2018, and ultimately when I left, it was probably $1 billion run rate company. A lot of the engineering milestones and that introduction of a hardware product we went through at Bloom. A lot of the financing mechanisms that we use to deploy our energy servers at Bloom, I think, have a real application here in the aviation space as well.
I visited Archer's flight testing facility in Salinas, California with Mesler and Chief Commercial Officer Nikhil Goyal. Goyal co-founded Elevate, Uber's air taxi division, and co-authored the 2016 white paper that laid out the vision for a commercial air taxi industry. He explained how advances in technology have brought that vision to the brink of reality.
Instead of using fuel and one large rotor like a helicopter, you can use batteries to power a dozen rotors. So on the Archer Midnight aircraft, you see 12 rotors, 6 in the back, 6 in the front. All 12 of those let you take off vertically just like a helicopter, but then these 6 on the front here, they tilt forward. And what that does is it lets you power forward flight like an airplane in tandem with the wing that's on our Archer aircraft.
We made the decision early on that we were only going to invest internally on key differentiating technologies, and clearly the powertrain is the key differentiating technology. So our investment is a recurring investment with respect to the powertrain team, the battery team, which is part of it, the engine team, electric engine team, which is part of it. And we also have a lot of non-recurring costs with the other components because we're not developing those internally. We're using the existing aerospace defense supplier base for most of the other components.
The Midnight testing aircraft was built at Archer's manufacturing facility in San Jose, around the corner from its corporate headquarters.
We bifurcated the production system such that San Jose is really a test lab and a low-rate introductory production plant. So we'll build our first minimum of 6 aircraft out of there. We're currently building Covington, Georgia, all the way up to Phase 2 will get us to 2,300 aircraft per year as well.
Why spend the money on both? Why bifurcate, as you put it?
Well, it's optionality for us because we're going to see what the market bears out. Nikhil and his team will be out developing the market, so I have a call option on that Phase 2. Phase 1 I can ramp up to as the market supports.
At the core of Midnight's commercial appeal is the passenger experience. It's designed to seat a pilot and 4 travelers plus luggage. The test aircraft isn't fully fitted out for passengers, but it's easy to imagine what the ride would feel like.
All right, this is it. This is inside Midnight.
Welcome.
The design is 4 passenger seats, front row, back row, and 1 pilot. How, after all this time, did you arrive at that configuration? 4 passengers, 1 pilot.
Our goal is to be the Uber of the air. When I was at Uber, we took all of the data of Uber trips going back and forth all over the world. And what we figured out was that 4 passengers was the optimal configuration to do one thing, which is lower the cost per passenger for these trips. So with 4 passengers, just like a sedan, you can split that cost amongst 4 passengers and make that equivalent to what you might spend on an Uber or a taxi.
Right. And there's a lot more to it from a financial standpoint than just the passengers. That's one factor. We also look at capacity on the route. So we understand what the cost of the aircraft is. We understand what the cost of the pilot is. We understand what the cost of the repair and maintenance of this is. We understand battery cost. All of that feeds into our unit level economic model. And it does show that pricing at ride sharing prices allows us to make an economic profit on that.
Back at Archer headquarters, I actually got to fly Midnight. Okay, not for real, virtually, in the company's e-simulator. Training pilots is another hurdle the eVTOL industry will have to clear.
How much burden are you going to take in the training process? Why does that fall to Archer? And if it does, what does it look like for you guys?
I think initially we are going to be training our own pilots. This is our own technology. I think eventually as we look to scale, and we're always talking about unlocking scale, we could look to partners to help us do some of the training. Early on, pilot training will be a critical part of our own operations.
The simulators really help you get a sense for how easy the vehicles are to fly. In fact, what we've found is people with less flying experience are actually better at flying these planes because you don't have to unlearn as much.
Does that include me?
That includes you. So within 5 minutes, you were able to take off, fly around the island of Manhattan, and land successfully. And that's your first time you've ever been in a simulator, and that's pretty incredible.
The eVTOL industry is poised for takeoff in 2025. That's when the FAA has said it plans to authorize limited operation of electric air taxis utilizing existing routes and infrastructure. While Archer Aviation puts its Midnight aircraft through testing for certification, it's also mapping out the launch of its commercial business.
2025 is going to start with a few aircraft in a few cities. So the first places that we're looking to fly are what we call our trunk routes, which are city centers to airports. There's already existing operators that fly those routes. So there's an existing heliport on the Manhattan side, and there's an existing heliport on the airport side. So imagine then, all you have to do is swap the equipment and add charging.
And if all goes according to plan, 2028 will be the year the industry scales up.
Billy Nolan, the former administrator, put out what he called Innovate 2028, which was the use of mass amounts of air taxis at the LA Olympics in 2028. We're not talking 10 planes, we're talking potentially hundreds of planes. So the whole industry is getting ready.
Billy Nolan, who spearheaded the FAA report, is now helping guide Archer's progress to market as the company's chief safety officer.
We will be, entry into service in 2025, and then you start to think about some sort of scale by the time you get to 2028. We use the LA Olympics as a forcing function. You start to move into a mature industry as you get to 2030, and you've got full maturation by the time you're in 2033 to 2035. And then this will only continue to grow.
We've got a contract with United. That is more of like an OEM type relationship. We also are going to be building our network to operate these as well, because we think the long-term value is that customer experience and that Archer brand, and we want people to Archer everywhere. That is how we're going to market, and that's how we generate revenue.
We're thinking about things like what cities are we going to deploy in, how do we work with the municipal authorities to get permission and sort of support to go deploy in those cities. How do we think about things like infrastructure and creating a really magical consumer experience?
This is not about empty promises. It's about delivering on a vision, and it's about executing to that vision and then bringing something to market that is truly transformational, and we will get there.
Archer's vision for its business is global. In October 2023, the company signed a memorandum of understanding with the Abu Dhabi Investment Office to launch air taxi service in the UAE as early as 2026.
The UAE has been one of the leading countries to say we want to bring air taxis to market. The country wants new mobility solutions, new technology solutions.
It's one of the fastest growing regions in the world. And you've got millions of people moving to cities and a lot of congestion that we can help solve. We've gotten top level support from the Sheikh. We've gotten top level support from the GCAA, which is the regulatory body, as well as the government of Abu Dhabi.
I think we may very well see some of those global deployments first before we see really large-scale deployments in the United States.
I do think you're going to see a very global footprint, and it also will be partly driven by how quickly the regulatory agencies move. There's a lot of different areas that need to kind of come together to make this work. And in some jurisdictions, for various reasons, it might be easier to launch operations than in others. So I think this is going to be a very global approach.
I feel very confident that the industry will bring aircraft to market in a very reasonable time frame. And by the 2030s, you will see these aircraft widely used around the world, and people will start to understand the real potential of what the industry can be.
CFO Mark Mesler will play a central role in helping Archer fulfill its potential and deliver on its promise. I asked him what he sees when he looks ahead.
The year is 2028. You are still Archer CFO. What does your job look like then, different to today?
Boy, at that point, I'll be running a multi-billion-dollar organization. I've created, along with the executive team at Archer, a once-in-a-generation type company that is moving people, throughout the world in urban environments, and we're still looking to grow and build outside of the geographies that were there. I mean, that's really the goal for 2028.
What's the one challenge that you're worried about most, that you think you're going to have to confront?
It's probably not one thing, it's the unknown. I can control everything in our budget, I can control our business model. There's always something that is around the corner. And so we have to have our radar on, and I have to have the right processes in place to deal with that unknown. For me, in the past, that's the one thing that we can't control, and that's the one thing that worries me, because I just don't know what it is yet.
The world of the CFO is changing. The days of spreadsheets and accounting only is no more. How are the skill sets of the CFO going to change, to your mind, in the next 5 or even 10 years?
I think the CFO's role is one that is a portfolio of skill sets, because you have to be able to talk to investors. You have to understand hardcore GAAP accounting. You have to be able to create predictability in the business model. And honestly, I think probably one of the primary roles of the CFO is to drive that business model and create accountability across the executive team to achieve those outcomes. You can't just sit behind a green eye shade and roll up numbers, and you can't just be out talking to investors. You have to be an operator. And I think, especially when you're pairing with sort of a visionary founder who maybe hasn't done this before, you're the person who's going to be driving that operational accountability in the delivery of the business model.
If one of your best friends phones you and says, Mark, I just took a job as a CFO, what's the advice that you would give them?
I would say beef up and become very good at planning, because planning is going to get you the output you want. Planning is going to help you know where your cash is going to go. And it's also going to involve other members of the executive team, and the inputs from them will create some accountability around what they're delivering as well. So it's not your financial plan, it's the company's financial plan.
I'm Ed Ludlow. This is Bloomberg.